Welcome back to another episode of the Acastus Knight Asterius. I am Bry the Builder, and in this episode, we are going to be, as you can probably guess from what you can see here, we're going to be placing the LEDs into the cockpit. So, got a little bit of white glue here ready to go. I also have a piece, really hard to see, of plastic card, essentially. I just cut this off of a little piece of plastic packaging. So I'm going to cut this into a circle, and it will be placed, toothpick pointer, it'll be placed down onto basically this opening here, right? So as a lens cover that I can then kind of paint up. I think I'm going to go for like top half blue, bottom half green, as maybe almost a, horizon finder. So hopefully then that'll cast some nice blue-green light onto this side of his face. This will be an ice blue LED that will most likely have to have a couple coats of the nightshade, Drakenhof nightshade on it to tone it down a little bit so it's not so bright. And that'll be backed up by a 1.8 millimeter white LED. Then this one will be an orange LED that will also most likely have to be toned down a bit. I've got some clear orange Tamiya that'll probably help out really nicely with that. This one over here is going to be another 3 millimeter flashing red LED that I'm going to definitely have to tone it down. I do have clear red to put over it, but I might also try, I'm not sure, to paint some form of pattern on it to make it look as though there's more or less of, I don't know, maybe a enemy finder screen there. I don't know. That one I'm not sure. That's going to be a really small detail that's going to be hard to see. Possibly just toning it down with some clear red so it's not so bright next to his face might be all it needs. It's going to be really hard to tell if there's any actual detail there. So, as I place these, I have a couple of them labeled and a couple that aren't, right? So the front blue and the side red flash. Then other than that, I know the little one's the white one and the other 1.8 or the other 3 millimeters my orange. I've already made sure that I can actually bend the stock of the LED. These are all from Evan Designs, and on Evan Designs' website, it does say that they can be bent exactly like that. I still have never bent them before, so I just wanted to make sure, and I tested it. Everything works just fine. I also have a USB battery setup with a micro switch, so after I get these all wired, I'll connect all my ends together and then basically test them out with the switch and see how it works. So as this one goes in, I'm still going to actually have to sand them down a bit, so it sticks through the side of the cockpit wall just a bit too much there. So before I get anything mounted, I'm going to go and actually sand them all down and make sure that they fit in their places nicely. Well, I guess I'm not going to need to sand down the 1.8 there, but I'll sand the other 3 down and get my little piece of clear cut and installed there. So yeah, all right, that's going to be a bit of a challenge. So that one will be fun. Hopefully it'll go in nicely enough that it will be essentially unnoticeable or invisible. The rest of the cockpit painted up real nice though. So, all right, well, let's get going. Just a little more. So that is just buffing around the sides to diffuse the light a little more. Make sure, well, hopefully not have too much for hot spots coming from the light. Should work really good. Think to keep that in place while the glue dries, I'm just going to put a little piece of tape on it. And really, I mean, that probably stay there forever. That's fine. I'll probably end up needing to cut this one off just because that flag's going to probably get in the way inside the cockpit. But for now, it doesn't really matter. That's in a nice spot. Using a little bit to kind of fill in the gap on the bottom. And if hopefully this actually does dry clear, hopefully that'll be nice and smooth. All right, so then front blue. Let's check. I think this one's pretty close. It just comes through a little. I think that actually looks quite nice. I don't have to push it in all the way. I can push it in a little further, but don't need to, or I can sand a little more off. But this one also needs to be bent. So I'm just going to hold and then gently bend the leads. And that should be nice. Now, I can actually come to the side a little bit more with this. Might make it easier because there will be one more right below it. So let's bend that just a little more. All right, so I still need to leave room for the white one here, but that should be plenty of space. All right, so Suppose I should tape that before I worry too much about trying to scrape off any excess glue. Too much. It'll be nice to kind of get these guys connected together and attached in some way. Those three look nice. Now the mounting of the fourth one is not going to be incredibly critical because it's going to be covered. So it just basically has to be back from the opening a bit. That'll be right there. To really just kind of allow the light to shine through, the little bit of plastic that's going to end up covering it. So that one actually don't have this way. Hopefully it'll be safe. Colors glue here. I got a little messy there, so I'm going to grab this. We're gonna see if this works. We're gonna try. So just put in this pocket with Elmer's. Should actually give us a nice light diffuser, as well as a nice surface diffuser. It would just been a lot easier if we just clumped together. All right, I am going to let this set up for a little bit and see. It does look like I'm going to need a little bit more glue down in there, just to even that out, or it may end up being that I'll end up needing to use that little piece of clear plastic. But for now, I'm just going to let it sit, hopefully at an angle where that's relatively flat, and see if that actually dries in a spot where I like it. And we'll come back in a little bit after it sets up a bit. All right, so with the LEDs in place there, I decided to go ahead and set the cockpit in place inside the carapace. And I went and took all my red wires and all my black wires, attached them together, and then wired a little switch in right here along the red wire. So I get a little micro switch, and then it is connected right back here to USB power. So then and the wires are just sandwiched between the cockpit there. That is obviously not where they're going to stay, but now as a test anyway, let's just turn on our LEDs and see what they look like. And so overall, right, that's really fantastic. But the blue one, I feel, is far too bright. So I want to darken the blue one there. And right now the one that's just flashing white, I want to paint some green over it, make it look a little bit more like a kind of sonar, not sonar, but maybe a radar map almost, but just green. It's about all I'm going to be able to do at that size. And then the blue one in front, I'm going to attempt to do the top half blue and the bottom half green, almost as a horizon indicator. So, and then the one on the back there that is flashing red, right? They all look great, and that one's fine. I think it's plenty dim, but when they're not turned on, I don't love that they have no color to them whatsoever. So I'm probably going to just tint all of them anyway. And at least, so yeah, the carapace is on great. The magnets hold it beautifully. All right, so now let's just go ahead and I'm pretty sure that the glue here should be fine. I'm not absolutely positive that it's dry all the way to the center, but it does appear to have a nice smooth surface, so I think it'll be okay. So let's just lean ourselves forward here a little bit, and let's start with some Tamiya clear green. Here we go. I don't work with Tamiya colors quite as much. They are acrylics, but we definitely don't want to mix them with any other acrylics. They seem to be kind of unique in their own way of acrylicness. I don't know. They're great paints, but you don't really want to try to mix them with anything else. So I'm going to try to keep them isolated here. I don't really want this to darken much, but I do want it to be a little bit more saturated orange. Let's test. Is more saturated. The green on the flashing white is invisible when it's lit, so that going to have to be much more saturated. So this, let's pile a little more on there. And I'm hoping that all of this will be even more noticeable once the brightness of that blue is toned down. Alright, now this is the Drakenhof Nightshade from Citadel. So, we will see if or how that affects the quality of the light differently. And I'm hopeful, that's a lot, that a couple coats of this will be enough to just kind of dim this light down and allow the other colors to come through. Alright, now, just be patient. Let that dry. And then build up a little bit more. Alright, well, I wait for that. Throw another coat onto the green. That should be better. I'm going to attempt something new. Alright, we're going to take a little Techless blue from Citadel. With a bit, so not much, just a tiny. Just a little bit there. And then, get to without bumping everything, some Lamian medium from Citadel, which is essentially not water, but almost like water. So it's like a wash medium from Citadel for being able to turn really almost any paint into a shade. So where if you thin regular paints too much with water, they will make tide marks as they dry, and the pigment settles around the edges. Theoretically, at least, with Citadel's Lamian medium, that doesn't happen. So we can do a shade paint with a little bit more saturated blue here to hopefully punch up the blue that's on our little scope. Okay, that might work. Let's move this and see if the focus helps. Let's turn him on. That one's still kind of insanely bright. I can see the green on the other scope now, but it still needs to be more dense. And it's bright. The paint on the front one definitely needs to be heavier. It's a good thing that paints, when they're this thin, actually dry quite quickly. That's a pretty heavy coat. Let's hope. I think the overall amount of light now coming from the blue is pretty similar. That green definitely needs a little bit more green around the edges. But I think maybe let's try green wash around the edge. But I think we're getting close. A little bit more of pretty much everything. A little wet. Alright, we're going to try a little of Citadel's Bealten green around the edge of this screen. Hopefully without me bumping my face on the camera. That, I think, is a nice even edge. Hopefully before that dries. Get that out of there. Down in that little edge is no big deal, but right on that silver, yeah, a little bit of green that's there. Just touch it real quick. Yeah, that little bit just almost gone. That's pretty good. Let's see if I can kind of pull this over to the edge a little bit more. Now, on top of our brighter blue, let's try a bit more of the nightshade. Darken it up a little. I think that, hopefully, is enough coats of paint everywhere to tone the brightness of our lights down and color them. So let's take a look. Well, overall, pretty darn good. On camera, the front blue is still awfully bright white, but in reality, you can definitely see the blue. It's a little mottled, so I might have to kind of clean that up a little bit more. I might have to paint it with the light on, I guess. But it also looks like it might be slightly changing as everything dries. So we may be done with that part. And I'm not sure what I'm moving on to next. I may end up actually dealing with, I think, the weapons and the alternate weapons next. I've gotten the 3D printed parts back from Adam. So that is most likely what we'll move on to next, and then dealing with the wiring of those parts and the LEDs and all of that stuff as well. So thanks for watching, and all right, I think this is looking pretty amazing.